Hey guys, it's Mrs. K. I'm here to read for you guys the 5th chapter of Cleo Edison Oliver, Playground Millionaire. Chapter 5, The Name Game. Cleo found her desk close to the door, and they'd just come in. It was pulled together with 3 others, same as all the desks in the room. She checked the folded paper name tents in her group. Nuts and Nintendo! Kaylee wasn't one of her table buddies. Instead, Cleo would be sitting next to none other than Cole Lewis, Mr. BMOC big man of the classroom. Cole was working the room, giving fancy handshakes and fist bumps to his buddies. Everyone loved Cole, including Kaylee. Cleo was not as impressed. The fact that he was Lexi Lewis's twin probably didn't help. Kaylee was one table over on the other side of where Cole would be when he finally stopped chatting it up. Kaylee was changing her first name from Michaela to Kaylee on her name tent. She and Cleo had come up with the nickname in 2nd grade so that they could have the same first and last initials. Cleo grabbed her name tent, pulled her favorite purple pen from her backpack, and wrote Edison in cramped, sloping letters between Cleopatra and Oliver. Then she added a comma and CEO to the end. Luckily, Kaylee, she was sitting across from the sophisticated and stylish Amelie Martinet, a girl with beautiful, long, reddish-brown hair who spoke 3 languages and whose family vacation in faraway places like France and Cape Verde Islands. Sitting across from Cleo was Micah Mitchell, who had a reputation for arm farting and breaking into song at totally inappropriate times. The 4th seat belonged to Anusha Chatterjee. With that last name, you might have thought she was born to talk, like Cole Lewis apparently had been. But she was the quietest girl in the whole school. Cleo would bring her out of her shell. That's probably why Mr. Boring had put them together. Hi, Anusha. Did you have a good summer? Yes. Anusha bent over to put her things in her desk, and that was the end of the conversation. Ah, well, all worthy projects take time. Cole's rear end finally made touchdown. He reached out and nudged Cleo's arm. Hey, Cleo, what's up? Fortune Enterprises stock, she said with satisfaction. She had looked online that morning. One day soon, she would be a shareholder herself. Cole gave her a funny look. He turned to Micah. How you doing, table buddy? They slapped a high five. You can think I'm strange all you want, Cole Lewis. I'll be laughing all the way to the bank. Mr. Boring blew into a small wooden thing. It looked like a carved handle of a crank or the top of a candlestick, but it quacked like a duck. Quack, quack. The ridiculous sound definitely got their attention. It also made everybody laugh. Cleo liked Mr. Boring already. Once everyone quieted down, Mr. Boring did not do the usual boring thing of roll calling. Instead, he announced a TV game show voice. It's time for the name game. Cleo felt a rush of energy. She loved games. In the name game, each person would have a turn to tell the rest of the class about his or her name, where it came from, what it meant, why their parents chose it. The one rule is that there were to be no interruptions while the person was sharing, and absolutely no poking fun. If a person did interrupt, Mr. Boring's 3 strikes and you're in policy would take effect. 3 strikes and you'll be inside for recess, and there's no way you want to spend your recess with me. My name is Mr. Boring, after all. His eyes roamed the room. He was serious, but clearly not boring. Then he made them all raise their right hands and swear on their parents' good reputations that they would not interrupt. No way, no how. No way, no how, they repeated enthusiastically. Now that we have the formalities out of the way, let's play the game. Cleo was disappointed. This game didn't have a winner, and even more disappointed when Mr. Boring started on the opposite side of the room. She was bursting with things to say, but still, it would be fun to learn about people's names and how they got them. More fun than doing some time-wasting assignments, that was for sure. She listened more or less to her classmates, all the while crafting what she would say about herself. Steffi Lee had been named after the midwife who delivered her. Tessa Hutchfield was named after her grandma. Amelie's parents had just liked the sound of the name. It was musical, which was fitting because so was Amelie. She had the best singing voice of anyone at New Heights Elementary. Michaela, had been named after an archangel. Archangel. It's an archangel like an arch enemy? Quentin McDonald asked. He'd gotten his name, which meant 5, from being the 5th kid in his family. Not exactly, said Mr. Boring, although they have this prefix in common, don't they? He wrote the words on the board and underlined the arch part on both. Arch means chief. So archangel would be top dog in the company of angels, and an arch enemy would be somebody's chief nemesis. His or her number 1 enemy. Cleo imagined Lexi Lewis's smug face. Kaylee, on the other hand, had been her arch friend since 2nd grade. How had Cleo never known that her best friend was named after the top dog of a company? No wonder they had always gotten along so well. Finally, they got to Cleo's table. Cleo was about to raise her hand, but Mr. Boring called on Anusha. At first, she spoke so quietly that Mr. Boring had to ask her to repeat herself. Her name came from an Indian word that meant beautiful morning star. Everyone thought it was really cool. Cleo wondered if her name had a meaning. She'd have to look into that. She started to raise her hand again, but Cole got to go next. She had butterflies in her stomach earlier, but not anymore. Now she had bats. The waiting was killing her. Cole was named after a famous singer, Nat King Cole. He started impersonating the man singing, "Unforgettable, that's what you are." He was so cheesy. Cleo looked at Kaylee, planning to roll her eyes, but Kaylee's gaze was so fixed on the singing fool. Why did her face look so dreamy? Oh, Kaylee. Mr. Boring asked Cole if his twin sister was also named after someone famous. She's named after a car. Cole snickered. Our mom always wanted to have a Lexus. A Lexus, get it? Now he laughed loudly like a donkey. Maybe Cole Lewis wasn't so bad after all, if he could laugh at his sister. Lexi Lewis had been named after a car. Cleo would keep the info in her back pocket, just in case. Finally, Mr. Boring called on her. And how about you, Cleopatra? She liked the way he said her name, long and drawn out, with a trill on the R, like an actor in one of those Shakespeare plays. I'm extremely curious to know how you got your intriguing name. Intriguing? He hadn't called any of the other kids' names that. Cleo's heart hammered. Her mouth went dry. She was still eager to share, but she was also crazy nervous. She realized, I got it from my birth mom, she began proudly. Your what? It was Rowdy Jimmy Ryerson. Mr. Boring made a whistling sound and held up his hands in a T. Time out, he said. Jimmy, that is strike one. Jimmy's name was the first to go on the board. Mr. Boring put a mark next to it. Please continue. The floor is all yours. His eyes roamed the room. Yours. Cleo liked the sound of that. She swallowed and kept going. My birth mom is the lady who gave birth to me. She looked at Jimmy. Obviously. Before I was adopted, she had no problem with telling people she was adopted. It wasn't a big secret. She named me Cleopatra because Cleopatra was a powerful and smart woman. And also a very beautiful African queen. And my birth mom wanted me to know that I'm these things too. She held up her name tent and pointed to where she added her new middle name. My middle name is Edison, which is my mom's unmarried name. My mom who adopted me, I mean. We are definitely related to the genius inventor and entrepreneur Thomas Edison, but don't ask me how because I don't remember. But you're not really related if you're adopted, are you? Jimmy blurted. Mr. Boring eyed him, then added a second mark. Did I mention the 3 strikes program lasts all day long? There's a lot left of the day, Jimmy. In conclusion, Cleo pressed ahead with her prepared remarks, in spite of the warmth in her cheeks, of the shakiness that had come over her. My name is Cleopatra Edison Oliver, president of Cleopatra Enterprises, Inc. She ran her hand under the name tent with a flourish. But you can just call me Cleo. She folded her hands on her desk and flashed them her best CEO smile. A few kids laughed, which was fine. She had meant for her audience to be entertained. Jimmy raised his hand. Mr. Boring hesitated. Yes, Jimmy. Why did that woman want you to think you're a queen? You can't be a queen unless you're from a royal family. Cleo scowled. Now she was getting mad. In her birth mom's eyes, I'm sure Cleo will always be a queen, said Mr. Boring, injected. A pain shot through her chest as if her heart were a peeled orange and somebody had stuck in the thumbs and pulled into 2 sections. Mr. Boring smiled at her. A nice smile. He rushed to her face. Cleo blinked away the tears that had sprung to her eyes in a surprise attack. Thank you for sharing, Cleo. Micah? Cleo didn't hear anything of what Micah said. The name game had turned out to be the lame game and a bit of the shame game. Anyways, it was a real stinker. All right, guys, that concludes chapter 5. I wonder what's going to happen next to Cleo. And that was not very nice of Jimmy. All right, guys, I hope y'all have a good day, and I'll see you in art.